Hello and welcome to the show. So today, and actually on Wednesday's video as well, we're going to be looking at sort of the ultimate hot hatch. We're going to start with the modern ones. These are cars either that you can buy straight from the dealer or ones that are sort of just come out of showrooms, and this is sort of working with what we have with Forza. Now, I like hot hatches. I kind of quite like the premise of them. Basically, you take a small family hatchback, you put in a more powerful engine, in some cases a lot more powerful engine. Ignore me falling off the road, that never happened, you didn't see that. You put kind of a more powerful engine in. They're still small, they're still relatively light, so they're quite fast, they're quite fun to sort of throw about with, while they still remain fairly practical. You could probably seat 4 in relative comfort, maybe 5 at a push. You can carry shopping about and carry kids about. So yeah, they're sort of an all-round practical car, but they still have got a little bit of speed, and when it's a nice day you can sort of boot it down some B roads and it'll be huge amounts of fun to drive. Now we're going to start with a Civic, and I know you're all going, what are you doing? I'm a muscle car person, yes, however, I do like Civics. The Civic Type R are fantastic cars. They get sort of a bad rep, and it's mainly because of idiots who've modified them and ruined them. A Civic is a very nice car. This Type R, in fact this is the Mugen Type R, in fact, is probably the best handling front wheel drive car, or one of the best handling hot hatches, shall we say. I'd say the Fiat is a bit better, but as a hot hatch, this Civic Type R is absolutely fantastic to drive. It really is sort of unrivaled in the handling department. It is quite expensive, 55,000 credits, which is an awful lot for a hot hatch, because you could probably get a Porsche Boxster for that sort of money, but it is a very, very good car. This Civic. Where's the statistics gone? Statistics, that one, yes, English, something. 0 to 60 is 5.9 seconds, which is pretty respectable. I have to say, top speed is 152. Not bad for a car that is, well, sort of usable every day. You could easily get away with driving one of these around. Has 237 horsepower, which is pretty good. It means that there isn't this horrendous on-power understeer that you get with the sort of the really high-powered front-wheel drive cars. It's a very, very nice car through the corners. It's a shame that Civics have sort of such a bad reputation because of idiots who have modified them and ruined them and mess about with them. Because as a car, the Type R, in fact all the Type Rs that are in Forza anyway, are fantastic cars to drive. There is a newer Civic now. I'm not a huge fan of that. The only one that's on Forza is I don't think it's a Type R, I think it's just the coupe version. So I don't know if the new Civic Type R will be amazing like this one. Possibly, I'm hoping it will be as well. So we move from the Civic Type R to the Scirocco R. This is another car that's a very, very good handling car. It looks fantastic as well. The Scirocco is probably one of the best looking sort of hot hatches. Me and Daniel actually kind of disagree on this one a little bit. He doesn't really like this car particularly. I think it's a fantastic car. Again, it's very, very fast. I think this is the fastest car we have in a straight line here, actually, at 162 miles an hour, which is pretty damn impressive. 0 to 60 is actually nowhere near as fast as Civic. 6.5 seconds, well, half a second out. But in 0 to 60 times, that's quite a way for cars that are very, very similar. I quite like driving this car. It's not as good as a Civic. I will be honest. I was actually surprised by that. For a long time I thought the Scirocco was the best handling sort of hot hatch. When I drove that Civic though, I kind of changed my mind. It is a nice car to drive. It is good fun. There's inevitable understeer on this one. It is also again quite expensive. 45,000 credits. Quite a lot of money for a hot hatch. There is a Scirocco GT, I think, slightly cheaper, slightly slower version. Again, still looks fantastic and still goes relatively well. So we move on to the Seat Leon. It comes in bright orange, which is a big plus for me. This is an interesting car. It's the similar sort of PI to the Civic and to the Scirocco. It's a relatively, sort of a mid-B class. It's an interesting car. It's not the best in the world to drive. I'm going to be honest. It is quite understeery. It's just not quite as refined as the Civic or the Scirocco. Speed is pretty good though. I have to say, 0 to 60, 6.1, it's only fractionally slower than the Civic. Top speed, 160 miles an hour, which is impressive compared to the cars that we have here. Has sort of 260 odd horsepower, is sort of middling weight as well, about £3,000. However, this is one of the cheaper cars we have here at 24,000 credits. I think actually it is the cheapest car we have here, which is, kind of a big surprise, because it is a fast car. I'm not a real fan of the styling, it's just sort of a little bit bland. It's just generic hatchback car. It's also quite a big vehicle. To be honest, I prefer the older Leons. more than I do this one, mainly for the styling front. They're not as fast, but I do prefer them. So we go from the rather bright orange Leon to the bright orange Focus. I know there is a newer Focus than this one, but I really don't like that one. It looks hideous, it's huge, and it's not particularly good to drive. So I'm using this one because this one is much, much better. This is the Ford Focus RS. This is the most powerful car we have here with 300 horsepower. Normally putting that much sort of power into a front-wheel drive car is a little bit insane, but it kind of works on this car. It just about gets away with it. It can be a little bit difficult to drive. There can be this on-power understeer that's not really very nice. However, this car copes with it a lot better than I was expecting, a lot better than I remember. It is, where's this price gone? It's not a huge amount of money actually, 38,000 credits, so it's quite a bit less than both the Mugen and the Scirocco. It's probably the fastest around a lap. If you gave it enough time and you kind of got used to the way it drives, I suspect this would be the fastest car overall. It's the same 0 to 60 time as the Civic. Top speed is 155, so again fairly respectable from the Focus. I can never quite decide if I like it. It's a little bit gearish, I think, to look at it. It sort of looks like a little bit sort of modified silly car, yeah, or whatever. Yeah, I can never decide if I like the look of that one. Anyway, move on to something a little bit more generic. The Clio RS, I think it's called an RS now. Oh, I don't know. They changed the name. I'm not a real fan of the new Clios. The brand new one that's not in Forza is absolutely hideous. This one's okay. The older generation is probably better. It's not as fast as the B-class cars. I think this is only a C. It's not really that good to drive. I'm going to be honest. It's just, yeah, it's not quite as precise, and there's a bit of understeer. The Megane actually suffers from the similar sort of problem. Only it's got more power, so it's even worse. And the Megane again, I don't really like the look of the Meganes, or the modern Meganes. Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a meh car. It's okay. It's just not particularly exciting. I would definitely go for the older Clios over this one because, yeah, it's okay but not really spectacular. We move on to the Vauxhall VXR, the Astra VXR. If the Astra GTC was in Forza, that would probably be one of our top cars because that looks fantastic. This one, no, not really, not quite so much. This is a bit of a mental car, I have to say. I was expecting it actually to drive worse than it is. The ones in real life are supposedly hideous. I've never driven one. In this game, in Forza 4 with this car, it's okay. It is quite tricky to drive. It doesn't actually have a huge amount of power. It's only sort of 230 odd horsepower, but it does understeer quite a bit, and it can be quite tricky to get used to. It is not exactly the prettiest car in the world as well, I'm going to be honest, but it's not as bad as I was expecting. You can kind of get used to it. It takes a little bit of time. But it's certainly not the one that I would pick out of all of them. However, it's relatively fast. I think it's about C400 PI. It's one of the faster cars we've had here, and it's not too bad to drive. We move on next to the Hyundai Veloster. This is the first Korean hot hatch, I believe, that has ever been made. This actually kind of reminds me quite a bit of the Astra in the way it drives. It's not quite as sophisticated as some of the other cars. It's a little bit understeery, can be a little bit difficult. Again, this one comes in bright orange, which is a big plus from me. I can't never decide if I quite like the styling. I don't like the 3-door thing they have going on with it. It just never made sense to me as to why they've got 2 doors on one side and 1 door on the other. This seems a little bit weird to me. And the styling is different. It's kind of, yeah, you'll stand out in it. And I kind of like that about it. I like that it looks different. It's not sort of a generic hatchback. They've tried something a little bit different with it. And that's kind of a good thing. And for a first attempt at a hot hatch, I have to say it's actually pretty good. I mean, yes, it's a little bit understeery, and it's not as refined, definitely not as refined as some of the other cars. However, as a first attempt, it's pretty good. I look forward to seeing what Hyundai can come up with next. However, these two are the cars that me and Daniel would sort of suggest. These are our favourites from the modern hot hatches. Mine, of course, has to be the Alfa Romeo Giulietta, mainly because it looks fantastic. It's by far the best looking car here. Even the brake lights are awesome. Yeah, that's pretty much the reason why I'd have this. Actually quite a good car as well underneath. And Daniel has gone for the Volkswagen Golf GTI, the Mark 6 one. The Golf R is faster than that, but the 4-wheel drive system makes it just not quite as much fun to drive. I kind of agree with that. It's yeah, the Golf R is a very quick car. Do not get me wrong on that one. The GTI is more fun to drive, I think. Just a little bit less power means it's a little bit less understeery, and you can sort of chuck it about into corners and have a little bit more fun with it. Now the Giulietta, as I said, is a fantastic looking car, but underneath it is actually quite a good car to drive. We're going to have a little race between these two here at Suzuka. The Giulietta is a quicker car in a straight line. It does 154 miles an hour as opposed to the Golf that does 150. Acceleration as well, it's a fraction faster to 60. It's got sort of 30 more horsepower and weighs about 3,000 pounds less. Overall, it is a little bit quicker. I think there's about 30 PI difference in them. But around the corners, the Golf is the better handling of the two. The Golf is actually a surprisingly good handling car. The Giulietta doesn't fare too badly. It still suffers a little bit from understeer, but nowhere near as bad as some of the cars we had here. Neither of these two are as fast as the likes of the Seat, the Civic, but these are the ones that we would have. I mean, the Giulietta primarily for the looks, because it's awesome. Also, price isn't too bad, 36,000 on the Giulietta. Yeah, it's getting a little bit expensive, but that's quite a bit cheaper than the likes of the Civic. The Golf is very cheap actually, at 26,000 credits, so a fraction more than the Seat, but still, that's not bad considering what it is. I can't remember how much the Golf R is. I think the Golf R is a little bit more money. As you can see here, we're sort of just going for a bit of a race. The Giulietta is the quicker of the two around the track. Maybe on a very, very short track, the Golf would sort of be faster than it. The Golf is good through the corners, and as you will see as we come to this section now, the Golf, if it's in the lead through the corners, the Giulietta does struggle, but on a straight, the Giulietta is a much quicker car. So yes, there we go. That is our recommendations for the modern hot hatches. There are so many of these cars that we've had to split this into 2 episodes. So we're doing a modern one. These are all the modern, sort of the most modern. There are some we can't do, unfortunately, that aren't quite in Forza, which we would like the Astra GTC. So we're doing the best that we can with this. On Wednesday, we'll be having the video looking at the sort of the more classic of the hot hatches. It'll probably be the more interesting episode, if I'm honest. No, they're all interesting, honest. So there we go. That is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Leave your comments in the commenty bit as to which of the hot hatches you would have. Sort of the modern hot hatches for now. We'll get to the classic ones later, because I know people will be arguing about that. So yes, leave in the comment section which one would you have out of all of these. So yes, until next time, goodbye.